So the conversation about upscaling, native resolution, the PS5, PC gaming, and all is one that has now come to light, and most gamers who are interested in performance in their gaming are, in a sense, now tuned into the conversation. More recently, we saw Digital Foundry actually put out their own comparison of Alan Wake 2 with an RTX 4070 enabled PC, and behold, the results were not shocking to anyone. Even the hyper PlayStation fans that were touting that the PS5 was going to actually match a 4070, I can almost tell you that deep down in their hearts, they sounded like they were doubtful. And many of them have a lot to still learn. I almost feel, in a sense, bad for them. But at the same time, sometimes tough love is the way that can really teach a lot of people who are really hot headed and strong headed. And I get it. Most YouTubers are like that. And most people that come on YouTube, they've had to, in a sense, push through a lot of, I would say obstacles. And so many of them are kind of strong willed. But in a situation like this, it's very important that we actually focus on what is most important, which is the data that we have. Now, a comment showed up on a feed that we were having. Somebody told me that they had a 5800X 3D and an RTX 3090 and could not run some games at native resolution. Now, the way they said it, they said, and I can't run games at native resolution. And I know that they meant some games because, that's a very interesting setup to not be able to run games at native, 1440, maybe even 4K resolution, because a 3090 can actually push 4K, but it depends on the game. And this is what we're going to talk about today. I've seen a lot of folk that talk about this whole conversation when it comes to consoles. They say things like PC is not as good as console because of game optimization, simply because you can get better optimized games on console. So somewhere, somehow, optimization is now a slight against the PC side, when in reality, the games and the developers are responsible as to how their games perform on any platform that they take their game to. This is Gotham Knights running on a 5800X 3D and also on a 6800 XT. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you the stats in terms of the hardware so that we can look at the native resolution that the game is running with. Another thing I have to say is keep in mind that the FPS is going to tank because I'm running OBS, and I'm going to show you why the FPS is going to tank, because you can see CPU and GPU usage as things go on. So connecting my controller here, we're going to go to options. We're going to go to the graphics, and you're going to see this is an AMD RX 6800 XT, and it's running at 1440. I will show you the CPU here very soon so you can see the 1500X 3D, and then we can also go ahead and look at what's going on. Dynamic resolution is off. I turned it off. My frame limit, I went all the way to 250. I could, go all the way to the end. It's not really going to do much. I can only punch out as many frames as the, hardware will let me punch out. The max render resolution is basically adjusting the scale resolution because, it may have an impact. So I put it on 100. That's basically where you're going to get it. Upscaling type is off. Upscaling quality is custom. This basically, if I'm using any upscaling, whether it be RTX, DLSS, or FSR or whatever, but this particular setup is an AMD setup. I mean, judging by the 6800 XT. And then you have all of these things except bloom, chromatic aberration, and depth of field all turned off. And then for my anti-aliasing, I use TAA Gen 4. For some reason, it's the best looking one to me. Maybe it's just my eyes. And then my quality presets, I've gone high for texture, shadows, and effects quality, which honestly, I could probably reduce the effects quality, to be very honest. And then the post-processing quality, medium, and then also my environment density, medium. If I probably drop to low, I might be able to eat some more frames with environment density. If you notice, did you see that? I kind of gained like another few FPS in that regard. And so, yes, the game is running at native 1440. Now, if there's some internal dynamic resolution that's going on, I'm not aware of it. And like I said, the FPS will tank because I'm using OBS. But I wanted to go ahead and just point out that this is a game that at first you could barely run this game at 60 FPS using a 4090. Why? The developers, when they launched the game, they put, optimization as second place. But eventually, over time, as the game started to, the game is peaked out. The game is gone to 160. I guess because I reduced environmental density, and I'm not doing a bunch of shenanigans. I've been able to basically, in a sense, tap into a little bit more in terms of performance. Environment density will get you almost every time. And so the developers, at the time that they were actually dealing with this game's launch, they had a lot of different challenges, and some of them were performance challenges, a lot on console, and just in my opinion, what I thought were very interesting things at the end of the day that did not allow for their game to perform very well. So when you kind of think about it, all those things and all that being said, the game did not perform well when it launched. It was just in a buggy state. And that's just the reality. There's no sugarcoating it. There's no making it sound all, wishy-washy. The developers dropped the ball when it came down to their own game. But what does this mean? Does this mean that optimization pretty much gives PC, a second place ranking when it comes to how consoles will perform versus it? No, it doesn't, because right now the game itself is still locked on console at 30 FPS. The developers have not changed that. The developers don't seem like they're going to ever change it, simply because it more than likely does not align with their priorities in trying to basically restructure their entire game, which is very CPU heavy, by the way, to get in here and then change up everything that they want to do. And so I don't think that the developers right now are in a position where they're probably going to do it. Maybe down the road, they might eventually be able to find a way to make the console version do that, but I don't think that they want to do this at all. And this is the Epic Games version, by the way. There's an Xbox version that has Play Anywhere. It plays almost the exact same way, on PC as well. And you're going to also see some FPS drops, like I told y'all, and the FPS is going to start dropping as we get, a little bit more, as we move faster down the road and all of that crazy stuff. But it is part of the gameplay, and it's also part of the recording that I'm, pretty much making. Another game that I thought was interesting was Star Wars Jedi. I've not had the time to actually deal with that game on PC more recently, but I remember that game was unplayable. It still is unplayable. The last time I checked on PC, some people have told me in the comment section that it is fine and all of the above, but I have not seen it yet. Like, I've not experienced that. In fact, my experience has been quite poor when it comes down to the way, the game has performed for me. So I think that's all I'm going to go by, that right now the game is just not vibing on PC. And the irony to that is that the game actually did, the first game that they made, that game actually did well and performed well for me when I was playing it on PC back then. Some people said they had some stuttering issues, but that's an Unreal Engine 4 game. But guess what? Gotham Knights is also an Unreal Engine 4 game. And right now there's no stuttering on the PC version. The game runs almost flawlessly. It will have its dips. It's an open world game, but I can't believe the turnaround that this game took after the developers went back and started dealing with the game, that it's running so well when you actually look at, say, different comparisons and so on and so forth. And this is what I was talking about, where it's all game dependent. We can look at even another game like Dragon's Dogma 2. Dragon's Dogma 2 is actually very funny. That game it runs like crap. I'm not going to lie. I'm just like, dude, what did I even buy? But that is a developer problem. The developer is responsible for making their game run well on different hardware. The reason I think that we're seeing this is, right now, the PC market has gotten slightly more complicated. Like, you understand what I mean? Like, there's more diversity in hardware. Man, this CPU is keeping up. It's not messing me up today. It's recording and actually maintaining over 100 FPS. But whatever. It's doing it's now in a place where I'm sure, developers are, no longer faced with the simplicity that they had back in the day when they made PC ports. And so now they have to actually do a little bit more work in terms of the different, SKUs of CPUs and GPUs and combinations that are out there, which, at the end of the day, they're collecting money from us. It's not like they're giving us the game for free. So the work is not something that they should relinquish, to be very honest. At the end of the day, this is definitely something that, we ought to keep holding developers accountable for, because if they don't do it, who's going to do it? I mean, we're not going to sit here and give them money for them to not do their jobs just because they say, oh, it's a little bit too difficult. I mean, these companies are multi-billion dollar, multi-million dollar a year companies in terms of either their valuation and the amount of, products and revenue that they generate, and if business is vibing for them. So with those kinds of resources, we're not talking about an indie developer. We're talking about a AAA developer. Their game should be vibing very well, because obviously if the game is not running well, it's their own game. They can fix it. They know their game in and out, and they're responsible for making sure that the game work. It's not the hardware that's actually doing it. So when upscaling has now come into the picture, I think it's now become some sort of a crutch that developers will look and say, well, we can't get our games going, to where we would like for it to go. And most people will probably not accept 30 FPS. So let's go ahead and do some upscaling, and let's do some frame gen, and let's do some other stuff. and probably not go that route. Or it could be that their technology probably needs to be, scaled much better to be able to leverage the best out of the hardware. And I think with, resolution and all of this stuff coming into play more and more, developers are now needing to meet the challenges. And given enough time, they will meet the challenges. And that's what we're seeing. And Gotham Knights, I think, is a prime example of that. This is, like I said, a game that could not hold 60 FPS with the 4090, some of the best CPUs at the time, is now basically double the FPS of what it could barely reach just, a year ago, or no, a year and a half ago. I think the optimization for this game came in within weeks for the most part. I remember, basically looking very carefully at a lot of things with it, and I thought it was very interesting at the end of the day. So, at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, what the whole industry and all the conversations actually have to offer in terms of this conversation is that the developers not fixing or optimizing their game out the door has really, really created a poor perception for the PC platform. Some of them have been a little more transparent, like EA with Jedi Survivor. I remember they came out and said, we're trying to, make this game for multiple high-end CPUs, and we're having a lot of issues. But again, even with the transparency, it's a matter of, okay, well, are you still going to fix your game before you launch it? And you find out that they're fixing the games after they launch them. It's not because that they can't get the games to work. It's just they don't have time, and their publishers are not letting them have time. So they continue to, in a sense, make everybody think that, oh, there must be something inherently wrong with PC. Like, this is the first time we're seeing these games being made on PC, right? Like, we haven't seen games made on PC in the last, say, 10, 15 years that in many cases just so much better at the end of the day. But it is what it is. I'm sure many of you are probably in a position where, you're probably looking at PC and all you think is, oh, the games don't really run very well. That's just a misnomer in terms of perception wise. And like I said I was going to go ahead and show you guys, the CPU of this particular build. And I said it was a 50, here we go. It's a 5800X3D. If you notice, OBU is using, is using a significant amount of resources. Now it's about 22%. Epic Games Launcher was also using a little bit of it, which the game was running on. But if we go in and we look at, say, the CPU and where's all my hardware? CPU. It's a 5800X3D for those of you who were wondering. So I'm kind of shocked how somebody said they ran this with the 3090 and could not do native on games. While I'm doing it on the games that you just saw here. I just played Gotham Knights. I mean, you guys probably just saw this. Or maybe, you didn't pay attention, but it was right here in front of all of us. And so I'm kind of curious how that was going on, or maybe their perception is that, oh, because of these games, not getting optimization properly, they can't run native games. No, what you need to do is basically figure out games that will run for you and run them natively. And the games that are not going to do so, then don't buy them. Like, that's pretty much how we roll on the PC side, except maybe you dial into hype and then, like me, you go buy the Jedi game and you don't get your money's worth. And then you end up playing it on console because they've been able to lock the FPS on that one SKU of, in quote, PCs. All right. Talk to me in the comment section. Hopefully we can chat pretty soon. And yeah, peace out.